One, two, three, four.
Welcome to the High Performance CEO Show, your exclusive insight into the strategies and success habits of the world's top CEOs. I'm your host, Sebastian Schieke, entrepreneur, mentor, and business angel. Prepare to grow your business, enhance your leadership skills, and thrive in today's world. Let's dive in. Hey, welcome to another episode of the High Performance CEO podcast. I'm Sebastian Schieke, your host, and today I'm talking to Molly Ruland. And Molly runs Hardcast Media, is a digital content agency, and she's really focused on two things: personal branding for founders, brands, and attorneys, and she produces a lot of podcasts. And those are the two things I would like to talk about today, because everyone should focus on personal branding. Everyone who's running a business or who's in your case an attorney needs to work on a personal brand, and using podcast as a tool to network is phenomenal. It helped me grow my business, and it's something I'm really passionate about. So hey, Molly, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
We just talked that you run Hardcast Media now for 22 years. This is an amazing amount of time. Most startups, they I don't have the exact numbers, but a big chunk of startups, they die within a year. And then the next chunk dies within 2 or 3 years. And only a fraction makes it 5 or 10 years. Running a company for 22 years is a big accomplishment. This is something I know how hard it is. We can talk about all these aspects. But in your case, amazing accomplishment.
Well, I have to be... Well, it's kind of dual purpose, really, because the company, Hardcast Media, I have only owned for 4 years. But prior to that, I owned a multimedia company for 19 years. I hit that record twice. So I ran the last company for 19 years, closed that down. That was multimedia content creation, but it was for musicians, artists, community members, very hyper-regional. And Hardcast Media is more B2B focused. So podcasts and branded content that drive revenue and create relationships. So I've been in business for, 23, almost 24 years, but this company is only 4 years old.
But we always have to reinvent ourselves in the process of running a company. And of course, you go different directions, and then you think, okay, maybe it's time to rebrand and rearrange things and just stop with the old, start with the new. But in the end, it's you being in business, and it's you going through the ups and downs of an entrepreneur and having staff, building a company. So there are a lot of things which our audience is most likely very interested in. And but let's start. So how did you start it off 22 years ago? How did you decide to run your own business?
I think I just always had that entrepreneurial spirit. My dad is definitely cut from that same cloth. And so I've always had that idea like, well, I think I could do it better, or I think I could streamline this process. And I worked for other people for a short period of time, a couple of corporate jobs, real estate finance. But I started my own business, back in 2001, I guess it is, and just the idea of, I was really excited about something and I wanted to share it with more people, and it just became this vehicle, and then I got really good at it, and then other people wanted to pay me to do the same thing, The thing with my first business is, and it was really a great lesson, it wasn't sustainable. It was successful. Yeah. Everybody loved it. I had t-shirts, I had a 3-story building, everybody loved us, but we didn't make any money, and I was not a good leader. And so I decided after listening to a podcast one day, Tom Bilyeu, and he was like, your greatest success comes after your greatest failure. And if you ask somebody else, they would say that company was a success, but it wasn't, because I was killing myself. I was pouring from an empty cup. I was taking care of everybody. Nobody was taking care of me. We weren't making any money. We were just, I was pushing a boulder uphill, and the second I stopped, it was going to roll back over me, and that was that. And so closing the company was actually the best thing I ever did. And then I took everything I did wrong and corrected it. And Hardcast Media is the next iteration of what a company looks like when it has a better leader. Still learning a whole lot about that. And then just market demand, creating services, understanding who you're selling to. All of those things I got much better at with Heartcast Media. And so it's really been quite the journey. But I just remember hearing that quote that your greatest success comes after your greatest failure. And I thought, well, I better stop doing this soon, so I can get to that greatest success part, because this is definitely my greatest failure, even though I'm sure thousands of people would disagree with you, but I know the numbers,
Mm-hmm. But still, if you run this now for 4 years, it means you run it for 18 years, the previous company, and it's still a success, surviving for 18 years, even if you say you hardly make any money.
Right.
You must have done something right, otherwise it would have
right.
imploded earlier.
For sure. But I think I imploded a million times over.
Yeah.
Just, that was the issue, right?
Exactly. That's the challenge, that many founders have. They keep the business running, but no one really can look inside, yeah? And some of them struggle. It's very lonely when you run an organization, when you showed all these challenges. And I've been there. I also had times where after 10, 12 years of massive success, my market changed, and
right.
And I wasn't ready because I didn't have the skills, because I was successful, so uber successful before, so I didn't really care about developing myself, I just run the business, yeah, and then boom, yeah, and things change, and suddenly you think, hey, what I'm gonna do now, how do I turn this around? Which, yeah, sort of led me to starting a journey of personal development and learning everything about entrepreneurship. And only then, when I changed myself, things changed around me. Yeah, that was a big learning, which is, also 10, 12 years ago. So I've been there, and I can understand what you went through. But what a relief then, starting something new, focusing on these two topics. We both know personal branding is very important, but maybe share this with your audience. Why do you think everyone should have a personal brand?
Well, because I think people, it's kind of a combination. People always say people don't buy from companies, they buy from people. But that's not necessarily true, because I don't know who runs the guy that made my car. I don't know who makes the toothpaste. You know what I mean? But people will, on bigger ticket, more personal items, they're going to hire somebody because of who they are. And so, a personal brand gives you an opportunity to represent yourself a little bit more clearly, and allows you to attract the right clients to you, and kind of really set the tone for what kind of content you want to make, who you want to be, what kind of life you want to live, really. All of that is very relevant, right? Because even if you own a company, or even if you work for another company, you could still have a personal brand on the side and have podcasts on your own, or tee things up for later down the road. Or maybe you want to invest in a whole bunch of companies, and then you want to spend the rest of your days doing public speaking. Well, creating a personal brand now to set yourself up for that, can really benefit you down the road, even if you're not necessarily the CEO or the founder or front runner in the company. You can still have a personal brand.
And what does it mean practically? Yeah, so what do I have to do to create a personal brand? What does it entail? What should I focus on when I never thought about this topic?
Well, technically we all have personal brands anyway. That's what LinkedIn is, right? Every time you post on LinkedIn, you're establishing your personal brand. Like, I use somebody who writes 1,700 word LinkedIn post,
Right.
I'm not, right? So that's a clear distinction in my kind of branding. So really, anytime you represent yourself on social media or on a podcast or through your own business or personally, it's a branding, and so if you don't want to be known and you want to be the guy behind the curtain, then don't worry about having, a personal brand. But if you're the owner of the company, CEO, founder, if you're a tech company founder in particular, you really, it's such a good example, because they really have to ride the line between telling their personal story, who they are, how smart they are, how they created this technology, but then they also have to go sell their product. They can't just go on a bunch of podcasts and talk about themselves. They also need to talk about their product. Their marketing needs to talk about the company, the founder, but it also needs to talk about the product or the service or the app or whatever. And so that's a really difficult thing to manage, because you're navigating personal branding with those founders, because, as you know, investors invest in people. They invest in the founders and the story behind it more so than the technology. And so they have to maintain that. But then once they get funding, they have to reach a lot more people. And so that you're not going to get that done with like, oh, here's my origin story of how I created this amazing app. You need to actually get in front of volumes of people in order to sell that app. So I feel like that's a great example of how a personal brand and your company's brand can like accentuate one another. Like, for example, I'm coming on your podcast today as Molly Ruland, and I own Heartcast Media, but I'm not coming on here as a representative of Heartcast Media. I'm coming on here as myself to talk to you about marketing.
Yeah. But still, we talk about Heartcast Media. It's an opportunity to leverage your business, your brand, and to tell what you do. And I think there's this mental model luck surface area. I don't know if you heard about it. It's basically in order to be lucky, to increase the luck of being successful, there are two things: doing and telling, and often you have two types of people, a lot of people from which I know, they do a lot, they work hard, but they don't tell anybody. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they are basically their industry's best kept secret,
Right.
Very successful, very good in what they do, but they don't have the reach, they don't have the visibility in the market. On the other hand, there are sometimes people who tell a lot, but they don't do much,
Yeah,
they have more visibility, but on the other hand, there's not much behind. Yeah, and
right.
I like helping those people who do a lot and initially don't tell much, so we help them tell more. Yeah, and then helping to step up and to get on the stages of the world and then share their message to increase their luck surface area, so that they be more successful. And it's actually easy to do. You just have to. Yeah, many people need to work on their mindset, that they don't hide themselves, so that they show up, that they present their brand, and that they go on the stages, and nowadays it's so easy to go on the virtual stages in the world, and podcasts, on events, and we run networking events, for example, to connect people with each other, and it's a very important and fun thing to do.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you help develop their brand. So you basically, I guess, you consult them, you craft a story.
Yeah, we're definitely more on the content side than the brand side of things. We work with some brand agencies, but we're content creation. So we're the we'll produce your podcast. We'll create the strategy for it, the production and the amplification. But we're really dialed in on like giving your marketing team a lot of assets or creating the content for people, solving the pain points. Like a lot of founders say, we don't have time, I don't know what to talk about, and I don't really want to be on my phone all day, like posting on TikTok. So we bring them into our virtual studio. We ask them 20 SEO weighted questions. A week later, we're like, here's 20 videos for TikTok, for Reels, for Shorts, with your branding, with your subtitles, all of that. So we solve those problems for clients, but we're not so much of the branding side of things. We do podcast branding, and we definitely will strategize with our clients, but that's our sweet spot. Is instead of hiring somebody internally to do video or a graphic designer, like a lot of companies are smaller, you don't need an in-house video editor. Like that doesn't really make any sense. You don't need to pay somebody every Friday. So you can work with us. I have 7 employees, full-time video, full-time audio, full-time, graphic design. And so we're like the pinch hitters, So when you have a project that you need, testimonial videos, a new website, any kind of digital content that's going to go on a website or out on social media. But our primary focus is really branded podcast and using branded content as a, business development tool and a very strategic way to generate revenue and create strategic relationships. That's where our laser focus is.
Many people, they start a podcast and put lots of effort in and create lots of shows, but they never really as you said, create any business, any revenue out of it, What's your strategy? What is the top 3 points you need to really consider when you create a podcast that it really leads to some tangible business?
Well, there's a couple different things. It's deciding, number one, what kind of podcast you want to have. You can have an interview podcast, or you can have like a thought leadership podcast, right? Where it's just you. Maybe it's a 15-minute podcast. It's just you. It goes out once a week. That's different than like interviewing somebody on a podcast. So My strategy is a little bit spicy. I guess I like to swim upstream a little bit, but I look at things completely differently than most people in the industry. To me, the guest is more important than the audience in a branded podcast scenario. So instead of if you're a tech founder and you're trying to raise money really quickly, you're honestly better off going or like get awareness quickly. You're better off going on other people's podcasts. That's a quick way to tap into other people's audiences, get in front of a bunch of people, create all that content. If you're a business, right, and you want to get in front of the people who will move the needle in your business, then a branded podcast is an excellent way to do that. So instead of worrying about if this podcast gets 50 downloads or 5,000, focus more on who are you interviewing and why. Identify 12 people in your industry that can bring you business, that can move the needle in your bottom line. And those are the people you interview. And you don't care if they have big social media followings. You don't care if they even post the interview or tell anybody that they came on your podcast. You are simply there to create a relationship with that person. Do a fantastic intro. Tell them things, Molly was born here and did this, but her high school teacher said this, just wow them with this killer intro. Do a great interview and then do the follow-up, do the amplification. And I think a lot of times people think amplification means post on social media, but the amplification is leveraging that time and creating that relationship. So if you've identified 12 people who can make money in your business next year by, asking for an introduction, whatever, then you've got a runway now to follow up with them. Hey, Tom, thanks so much for being on my podcast last week. By the way, here's 3 graphics we made with your face on it. Here's a blog post where we mentioned you. Here's, all these assets that you can use. And by the way, I would really love if I could get, 20 minutes of your time next week. I'd love if you'd be on our board of directors. I'd love if you'd make a donation to this account. I'd love for you to make an introduction. That's where the magic happens. And so it's not about actually getting in front of more people. It's about relationships, right? Because in my 47 years being on the planet, I have learned that everything in life is about relationships, everything, And so if creating 12 relationships with people who can make you more money doesn't generate ROI, then I'm not really sure what does. And I think a lot of people are preaching, get a podcast, interview people, post on social media, tag them on social media. And yes, all of that is right for sure. But who are you interviewing and why? And can they help you get more business easier? And more importantly, are you asking them? Are you following up with them? And a lot of people really fall short on that, like podcasters in particular. They have people on their podcast. They don't even tell them when it came out. They're not sending them graphics. They're missing that whole opportunity to further that relationship. So, that's the mindset that I have. That's what I've, strategized and trained with my clients to do. And we've seen it work tenfold, but it's a little bit different of an idea than a lot of people are preaching out there for sure.
Yeah, I mean, podcast is an amazing networking tool. Yeah? It's a door opener. Yeah, you can use it to talk almost to anyone you want. Yeah, because most of the people, they would love to talk about themselves and their business. Yeah, and why not give them a stage? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was on a podcast, like 2 podcasts last week, because I was like, I'm just going to go on a whole bunch of podcasts, and I live in Costa Rica. And I live on the side of a mountain. It could be a little isolating. So I'm like, I'm going to go hang out with some people on podcasts and, try to offer some value. And 2 people that I talked to last week were like, I'll be honest, I read your profile and all these questions are questions I wanted to ask. And they were like, I use my podcast as a free mentoring tool. And they're like, we get in front of all these super smart people and I ask them questions about my business, like loosely. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not even mad at that. You're putting in the effort. You're producing the show. You should get everything you want out of a podcast, But the important thing is you have to figure out what is it that you want out of this podcast. And that's really the first step is, a lot of times people are like, oh, well, I'm going to have a podcast and I'm just going to do it on my phone and I'm going to not buy a microphone. And if it works, then I'll buy a microphone. Listen, you wouldn't show up to a business meeting in sweatpants and say, well, if the first meeting goes good, then I'll wear my suit. I'm like, what are you talking about, man? Like, there ain't going to be a second meeting. You've lost your mind. So, it's the same, really identifying what is the purpose of the podcast. To me, every content plan has 3 pillars. It's strategy, production, and amplification. If you don't have a strategy, if you're not super clear, because podcasting can be expensive, especially if you're hiring a production company. And if you're doing it for your business, you should produce it to the highest quality that it can be, because nobody's going to hire you if your content is janky. You're not going to get that $50,000 contract if your stuff sounds and looks bad, and they're never going to post it on their social, So you really need to know why you're doing it and do a good job. And you're better off doing 12 targeted episodes and stopping than recording for an entire year with no real purpose.
Yeah, a lot of people, they just produce tons of content, podcasts, blog posts, whatever, share this, and then they wait. And then they then they think, oh, we need ads, and then they put money in ads, and then they still figure out that nothing happens, because, hey, I mean, the world is swamped with content, and especially nowadays with the rise of AI. I mean, we will need AI to go through the AI-created content, to make sense out of it.
Exactly. Well, interestingly enough, there's actually a shortage. There's more of a demand for content than there is content. And so there's definitely room for you to make successful content. But is it going to actually benefit your business is the question, right? Because, I look at a lot of short form content, and I'm even starting to see repeats of the same content now, because there's just not enough people making it, if you can believe that. It doesn't seem that way, but you can, and I mean, you see it sometimes. People are like, episode 347 of my podcast, and I can't help but think, what could you possibly still be talking about, man? You know what I mean? Like 327 episodes, like, I don't know. Like, if I haven't heard of you and you have that many episodes, then it's probably not working as well as you think it is. And that just feels like, if you're trying to be famous as a podcaster, then that's 100% how you do it. But if you're trying to move the needle in your business, that might not be it. I venture to say that it's better to do 12 episodes, 16 episodes, 24 episodes, batch record them, launch them weekly for 4 weeks or 4 months or whatever it is, take a couple months off or come back in 2 quarters, look at the analytics. What episodes did people like? Who did you interview that actually made a difference? Look at that data, then regroup for another season and do a different season where you can pivot and say, this whole season is dedicated to AI. And then the next season, when nobody's talking about AI anymore, it can be dedicated to whatever. And it gives you a natural opportunity to pivot, to talk to different people. As you mentioned in business, we have to pivot all the time. That's like, no matter how good your business is, maybe you didn't set it up, or you don't have enough referrals, or maybe the market completely changed, right? You have to be, and so it's good to stay a little fluid.
Yeah, it's a constant change. I mean, you don't get the job for life anymore when you are employee and work for a company. I mean, the times where you work for 30 years in an organization and then get the golden needle and retire. I mean, this is history now. But it's the same for entrepreneurs. When you run a business, you don't start something and then you do it until you retire. I mean, if you need the right mindset to be able to pivot, to change, to reinvent yourself on a constant basis, I mean, looking at how far, looking at the last couple of months, with the rise of AI, it's just starting, the change. But this change is so significant, and it just touches so many different businesses and areas. I mean, everyone will sooner or later need to think about, okay, how can I provide value in the future? How can I differentiate myself from these machines? Which do my work. I mean, I had a talk the other day with another marketing person, and she was on a sales call with someone. They are producing content, blog posts basically, and then this guy said, okay, now I test you. I have ChatGPT here and give me 5 headlines for my topic, and now I want to see who is better and faster. I mean, this is crazy, But
I'd be like, the robot wins, goodbye, because I don't even want to work with somebody like that. You know what I mean? Like, good luck.
Yeah.
Well, because, and to your point, like, podcasting, that's the one thing. Like, an AI robot is not going to be able to replace me or you with this conversation. And I think that as we go further down that rabbit hole, the people's need and desire to hear real human voices, all of that will increase. And AI is writing social media posts, AI is writing blog posts, AI is doing all of that. And AI is creating deep fakes too. That's a whole other conversation. Yeah. But I don't think either one of us are cool enough for anybody to deep fake us. Yeah, let's hope not anyway. But, these conversations can't be replaced, right? It's like even, even when we get into this big rabbit hole of like marketing funnels, you're going to have funnel and top of funnel. And it's like, it's just a misnomer. Yeah. It's like implying there's this massive amount of traffic that needs to be funneled into something smaller. And I think that's misleading for a lot of businesses unless you're doing like e-commerce and high volume, but most people are not. And so I think it's just like, being genuine and authentic and making sure you know what your audience is and creating content for them. Like there's always going to be a want for people to listen to that content, know who you are, and then decide if they want to hire you or not. And so I think it's a good way to stay a little bit more human, because no matter how much technology advances, business is still done with handshakes and across the table from one another and all of that. AI is not going to close deals for me. AI is not going to do my work for me. It'll speed things up, but it's never going to take out that human element completely in real business. It might in content, it might in social stuff. I think it's highly dangerous for society, but I still think that there's going to be people are still running this thing, for now anyway.
For now, I hope the now is long.
Fingers crossed.
Long enough, yeah. Hey, so your main target groups are, you work for attorneys, you said, yeah? So what is your relationship with attorneys? How did you found this target group?
We work with everybody, really. Our sweet spot is like businesses, brands. We do some work with nonprofits, some government agencies, some attorneys. And then recently we've been doing a lot with founders, CEO and founders, and then a lot of authors too. So it's really anybody like trying to create content, and it's all businesses. So people with a little bit of a budget, if you want to have a podcast about your favorite TV show or baseball, I'm probably not your best use of funds, but if you want to create a podcast for your business, then we're definitely the right people to call. But, I'm based out of D.C. I live in Costa Rica now, but our business is based in D.C. So one of the largest law firms in D.C. was one of our first clients. So we produce 4 different podcasts for them. One of them's in Spanish, which is pretty cool. And so that was kind of our first big client base. But, the pandemic, we had a brick and mortar studio, and then the pandemic happened and we went fully remote. And so now our clients are literally all over the world, and it kind of opened up the scope of who we work with, which is cool.
Interesting. Maybe before we close up, being an entrepreneur for 22 years, definitely, as I said, it's a great achievement, but it really takes certain type of habits, certain type of high performance traits, and certain type of activities you do on a regular basis to really stay on top and to keep the energy. What kind of tips you want to share with the, say, founders who have this in front of them, the next 2 decades running a business? What are top 3 things you say, okay, if I would start again, I would focus on those top 3 things right from now?
Number 1, education. Number 2, leadership. And number 3, mindset. I'm a student of business and personal development. When I closed that last company and I formed the new company, I decided I was going to do it differently. And so I've read 130 some odd books on business development and personal development in the last 4 years. Well, and some of them I read multiple times. I'm a big fan of Audible, but like every successful person on the planet has a book, and they will tell you exactly how you did it. Even the people you don't like Grant Cardone. No offense, Mr. Cardone, but if I hear that guy say 10x one more time, I swear to God, I'm going to run out the room. But I still had a couple aha moments when I listened to that book. Do I want to go to a Grant Cardone mastermind? No. But did I get some information that was helpful? Absolutely. Leadership. Man, I read the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership by John C. Maxwell, and it was hard because I just saw how poor of a leader I had been for so many years. And I didn't know, because you don't know what you don't know. And especially being a woman, I'm not taking a cop out, but we're not taught business. We're not taught leadership. In fact, if you display any leadership abilities when you're a young woman, you're told that you're bossy and you're loud. And they literally discourage those qualities right out of you. You're not supposed to be a leader as a woman. Those 2 words don't even really go together. Now more so, but that's not really an inherent thing. So reading about leadership and what does that actually mean, and how do I align who I am morally as a principle or circumstance kind of a person, and how does that align in my business? And so reading books about leadership and seeing other people be good leaders, it was, I literally would stop the book and call people and just say, I'm sorry. Oh my God, reflecting back on times and things I said, did. I'm like, oh God, you like crawl out of my own skin with embarrassment. But I didn't know what I didn't know, and so I fixed that, right? I fixed that. And then mindset, especially as a woman, too many business conventions focus on you are enough, tell yourself you're enough. And I'm like, stop with that. Show me how to make money. Teach me how to be a leader. Show me how to grow my business. Stop talking about you are enough, right? And yes, it is a thing because as women, we're not taught to be lead. We're not, we're always the first one to count ourselves out. We're the first one to make sure everybody else is okay. I know this is a dumb question. We all do. We've been literally conditioned by society our whole lives to be that way. And so many women are not business owners because they think they can't do it. And I'm 100% convinced that we need more women to make more money because the data is there. When women make more money, we enrich our families, our neighborhoods, our entire communities. The companies we work for have better resources and better healthcare and better family leave. And we are awesome and we need to make more money. And so if entrepreneurs, men and women, could get out of this whole imposter syndrome thing, stop talking about imposter syndrome. Plot twist, you don't have it, Not feeling like you're good enough is not imposter syndrome. Two women coined this phrase, okay? Imposter syndrome is when you have accomplished something tremendous that you have been publicly recognized for that you don't feel you deserve. And imposter syndrome is used incorrectly all the time.
Yeah.
And it drives me insane, and it feels like a tool to prevent women from taking a step out because every convention is talking about imposter syndrome instead of talking about, listen, if you're having doubts about your business, get a mentor. If you're not sure how to run your company, read more books. Don't diagnose yourself with a fake symptom or, syndrome that doesn't even exist. That's only going to fill your head with more doubt. Mindset is everything. If you believe you can, you can. And if you believe you can't, you can't. And so anytime you have one of those self-depreciating thoughts or, I can't do this or I don't know what I'm doing, read a book. Take a course, go fill the gaps in what it is you don't know and go do it anyway, and I think men are a little better at that than women. And so I just wish more women would take that leap and not worry about if they're enough or if they have imposter syndrome. Just do it anyway.
I love these 3 points. I completely agree. Mindset is the basis, if you doubt yourself all the time, if you think you can't achieve this, if you compare yourself with others, this is something which many people do, they compare themselves with others who might be 10 years ahead, in their journey.
100%.
The problem with social media also is that we all only show off the good sides, and then you see the successful entrepreneurs, successful people, but they only show you 5%, the rest is just hidden. And but the impression you got is, they are there and I'm not, and I should feel bad now. And then this is really something we all have to work on a consistent basis. Yeah, it's a muscle, you need to train on a daily basis. Then education, definitely. Leaders are readers. We need to constantly feed our brain, and I would add. Also putting filters on, because there's so much crap out in the world, so much negativity, and then, garbage in, garbage out, if you consume all this negativity, then it's building up in your body and in your mind, and you can't be the leader your team deserves, so filtering is very important, staying focused, and having developed the leadership traits, leadership abilities you need. It starts with yourself. You need to lead yourself first before you can lead others. And this is why I'm also passionate about leadership. This is why we also mentor in leadership and help entrepreneurs become the leaders they need to be and their team deserves. So Very good points. Hey, it's been an amazing conversation, Molly. Is there anything you'd like to add, share with the audience? Something you really want to say and thought we might have missed?
No, I think this was great. It was a great conversation. I appreciate being on here. If anybody's interested in the work I'm doing, check out my website at heartcastmedia.com. All my social links are there and contact forms, but you can see everything that services that we do. But really, just go out there and create good content. Be intentional, be strategic, especially now, right? We're in an economic downturn. Layoffs are happening. Banks are collapsing. There's wars happening. It's definitely a good time. Alex Hormozi was one of my favorite marketers out there. He wrote $100 million offers. He does a comparison between how much he spends on paid ads versus content marketing and the attention arbitrage and the impressions versus impressions compared. And there is no question you're getting 5 times the return on content marketing than you are on paid advertising. So if you are thinking about how to get in front of new people this year, content branded, content is, and a content marketing plan is an excellent thing to do to save money and be more effective.
Thank you so much. It's been an amazing chat, and we'll put your contact details in the show notes, of course. And if anyone wants to work on their personal brand, someone wants to look for someone who can help them with production, reach out to Molly, and I'm sure you're in good hands. Thanks a lot, Molly, for
the
conversation. Thank you for tuning into the High Performance CEO Show. I'm your host, Sebastian Schieke, and it's been a pleasure serving you. Please subscribe to our show on your favorite platform and leave us a review. Your support helps us reach more listeners and create a bigger impact. Check out our website, sebastianschieke.com, for additional resources. Until next time, be bold, be exceptional, be outstanding, be a leader.